Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today, I'm very excited to have another special guest. Today, my guest is Ivy Jones, who you will remember from Season 1's episode, The Bicycle, and Season 2's episode, The Fulfillment. Please welcome Ivy Jones.
Hello, Judy.
Hello, Ivy. Welcome.
Thank you so much. As I was saying, I'm so happy to be here because you are so lovely doing this show. You bring us back and then you bring it into where we are at today, and you bring back the themes that we also need and always need, and especially now because the population is so big and there's so many of us. So to come back to those early themes, and you do it beautifully. I just have to say that it's more than an interview. It's really connecting people with what you were so lucky and blessed to be in that show, which that show did that, and it still does, evidently, right?
Yeah, it's been quite something, and I'm always so touched when people like you who have been a part of the show come and be guests and also tell me that they have watched what I'm doing. So it's been quite something to feel like I'm, this community, I'm helping bring it back together. And it's been really very satisfying for me to do this as well.
I'm glad to hear that. It has to take a lot of work as well, organizing and booking and seating yourself so beautifully. And, I assume we're in your home. Maybe,
we are.
This is my office. We're in your home. Yeah. This is your office. Okay, lovely, beautiful. Setting is great with the flowers behind you. I love it. We seem so young. I was 20, I don't know, I have to count, 24 maybe when I did the show. And I'm so thrilled now when I look back and realize it was the first season. That's like fantastic, to be part of the first season. I love that. I just love it. 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 54. I was 26. I was 26.
Wow.
What a way to enter the entertainment world. I mean, to have scripts like that and sets like that. I mean, it was extraordinary. I was, almost fresh out of college, and to come into an extraordinary, I mean, it is still to this day a landmark show, People watch it.
Yeah.
People watch it.
Yeah. It is quite something.
A lot. Yeah.
We had obviously no idea at the time we were doing it that here we are 50 years later, and
50 years
still being shown. Of course, we had no idea that of all the opportunities that would come to be in terms of streaming and internet and all the ways that people could go back and watch things. Because at that point, if it wasn't live on TV in that moment, and they didn't show.
Yep. Right. In that moment. And I remember I had a friend in New York who would call me, 3 hours later, or what am I saying? 3 hours. He had seen it already in New York, and then he would, so I would get calls from friends in New York. That's so cool. But we don't do that anymore. We don't have to do that anymore. But that's what we had to do. It had to be in the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. So as Mary Ellen, you were actually how old, like when we met?
In season 1, I would have been 14.
Wow. Amazing. Just amazing.
Yeah. And of course, you came in and you played Anne Harris. And you were in originally The Bicycle, where you came in, and you were supposed to be from New York, was it? Or you just had visions of wherever you came in from, and you had been writing, being a pen pal with Curtis Norton, but you had this wonderful sort of experience and relationship with Hollywood and the movie magazine, and this wish to live your life like it was a Hollywood
Yeah.
movie. And what a fun
Yeah.
character.
Such a fun character. And to be, as I said before, to be starting myself in the business at that age. I started a little earlier, but to get a role like this, can you imagine getting a guest role like this now? I mean, it does. I don't even know if it exists really the way shows are mapped out today. But it meant that I could use everything that I had from school, from learning, from teaching, from all the great teachers I had, because I grew up in New York City and in LA, went back and forth. My dad was a writer, so we went where the work was, and to be able to use all of that and not have to shy away from it, not have to just, okay, we just want you to be simple, just say it, because I don't do well with that at all. That's a very difficult thing for me. It's a little less, but that character was me in a sense. I mean, exuberant and wanting color and excitement.
Yeah.
And
so take us back to your audition process. I'm always interested in, because people had different sorts of experiences coming into the Waltons.
I remember sitting in the room. I can see the room. I remember seeing two of my girlfriends at the time that I had been in acting class with. And maybe there were 6 of us or 7 of us in the room at that point. In those days, that's what it was. And if it was a callback, it was 2 to 3 people. I mean, never did we imagine it would be the way it is today. But I remember in particular seeing these 2 gals that I love. I still know them to this day. And just feeling like I want to get this so badly. I don't want to be competing with friends, but this is such a great part, And so I just said, okay, I'm not going to look at the room. I am in that car. I am going up that road. And that's really, I set up the environment so that because otherwise, it's like, oh, hi, how are you? What are you up to? I can't do that, and you don't want to hurt the feelings of people that you even like or love as friends. So I totally got into the environment. I got into the car and just started to ride that car and looking at the script. And then they brought me in and I was still in that car. I just looked around at the mountains and where we were. And I think that's what relaxed me so much. And I just really put myself into the scene. It's harder nowadays to do that. It's maybe for me, maybe because I'm older, it could be. I just at that point, and I watch it and I see how free I was as an actor in those days. And it's harder to be that free today. It really is. Yeah. Yeah. So that was, and I don't even think there was a callback. I think we just heard pretty quickly.
Now, in the first episode, I believe it was Ned Beatty who played Curtis. So you got to act with 2 different actors as your husband, as did I.
As you did, yes.
But yeah, and my assumption on those things, because people say, why did they recast something? Is that probably Ned Beatty was unavailable. Ned was an absolute sweetheart.
Yes.
So what did you, and so talk about the being asked back in the next season.
That was incredible. I could not believe it. It was just, and right away I just assumed that Ned was busy. Ned was off doing a movie somewhere probably, or because he is a lovely man, was a lovely man, I still feel people that are gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
and
much
then
so.
You were back with Victor French, who you'd worked with. How fun was that?
That was so great. Victor, we had a class with Victor, and starting in my 22, 23, when I came out after school in New York, out here, So we had a class with him, so we knew how to work together. And he just enriched everything I had learned, back east. And it was like incredible to know that it was going to be recast and it was going to be Victor. It was just so fabulous, a very storybook like, it seemed like it was a very small town at that point. Now we're global. Now it's global. Everything is wide open. Anyway.
Yeah. So
Vic was, yeah.
At that point, because when you first came on, because it was season 1, had you had a chance to be watching the show at all before you?
I don't know that I did. I really don't, because I just think I was being a girl in her 20s. I don't, and I certainly couldn't do what we do now. Let me look up the show that I'm reading for. Let me see what I'm doing. Oh, let's watch a whole season tonight. and now, of course, I watch everything. I watch everything. It's all so delicious. There's so much to see. There's so much work to see on so many different topics. No, I don't think I had. Seriously, I had been married right after college, way too young, just fell in love with this charismatic Latin actor, and God bless him, and may he rest in peace. He was a wonderful man. His name was Gregory Sierra. And we met in New York. Yes.
He did an episode of the Waltons as well. Loved working with Greg. Yeah.
Yeah. It was great. We were too young. We didn't know. We're in love. Let's get married. Go to Hollywood. That's what it was. And he started working immediately. And he was wonderful. And, my brother, my baby brother, because he was born the year, a week after I graduated high school.
Oh, wow.
He was born. So he's now a writer-director. He's turning 60 in June. And he has done a couple of movies, directed and written with Andy Garcia in Marie.
Wow.
And Andy said to him, and he just told me this recently, Andy said it was Gregory Sierra that made us think we could do it, made us Latins feel we had a place. And I thought, wow, why'd you take all this time telling me? That's such a great thing to hear. And he was like that. He was strong, and he cared very much about, he was very careful about, are we going to use an accent, or can we show this character without an accent? Just because I'm Latin doesn't mean I have to, and that's a long time ago. That was pre-inclusion days, Now it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So coming on to the set and working with the cast, the directors, the crew, how was that? What was your experience there?
I felt like it was my sweet 16 party, or I just was in heaven, absolute heaven. The whole notion of going to bed early, because I have to get up at such an early time, and they're going to do my hair and makeup. And of course we did wardrobe prior. Sometimes now you don't do that. You just go in and they throw something on you and change it if need be. And the clothing was so incredible for Anne Harris. I mean, it was right out of the movies. I watched Astaire Rogers movies as a kid, all those movie musicals. And I remember saying to my mother, I'm wearing this lounge like jumpsuit that is so Ginger Rogers. So it was just miraculous to me. It really was. Everyone was so sweet and nice and welcoming. The kids were fabulous. And you were all connected very quickly.
Yeah. Did
you all meet prior?
We had done the homecoming together, all of the children. So we'd had that 5 weeks of filming that TV movie. Wow. So by the time season 1 started, we and Richard Thomas and Ellen Corby had all done that. So we really, amongst our dynamic, that already existed.
And you were excited to be back together. That I saw, of course.
Yeah.
I didn't. Homecoming, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the whole thing was like just a beautiful dream to me, to have a part that with that kind of color and size, and to come into a set that you just totally felt like you were there. You just were there on the mountain, and you were in the Waltons' house, that kitchen. Oh my God. I mean, it just was, yeah, I had no trouble just melting into the whole ambiance of this is where we are. It was very real to me. I think the actors, all of you, were so wonderful. It could only feel real. It just felt real, you know? And
Yeah.
of course, the character felt real. A little, a little just reaching and wanting, and so sweet. I was very excited.
Yeah, it was an interesting character because so much of the time, the characters on the Waltons, and the guests and stuff, everything was so real and so that you could relate to those people. But I mean, you did such a beautiful job in creating Anne, because we saw her facade and what she wanted, but you let us see beyond that. It wasn't just that you put on that show with nothing behind it. So we saw who she was and her need to create this out of her own inner sense of herself, or what she wanted, her fear, or her, whatever was prompting that need in this woman at that time.
Yes. And she wasn't a baby. It wasn't like she was 18 or 20 coming to, meet a man that she would hope to marry. She had already had some years of single living. And at that period of time, that was almost a little strange, very, very, quite a stretch from the norm. It's funny because, yes, Alf Shalene, who directed that, so sweet and so good looking, such a doll. And I remember he said to me, "You're so good, you're going to have trouble because you're different." And I did. I had trouble in later years being cast. And then it went to the opposite. The world has so evolved that different is wonderful. Different is celebrated, which is fantastic, because we have to get to a point of that, because we have to inhabit this world together.
It is you raise an interesting point about like the characters, because at that point in time in the 30s, and it was something I loved about my early years playing Mary Ellen, was that she didn't want to follow that, what was an accepted traditional path for a woman to get married as early as possible, in a sense, or you might not have the opportunity later, and to become a wife and a mother. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but the idea of women wanting to pursue careers or waiting to marry until they were older, or things like that, just less of a life choice for women. And to think that a woman like Anne, who was a little bit older, she didn't marry at 16, 17, 18, whatever, that maybe her opportunities would be gone. And the sense that those points in history where a woman maybe didn't get to marry for love because that option didn't come along, and you had to make a practical choice for your own. How were you going to support yourself?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I said, well, let me go back and let me see your behind the scenes about the bicycle. And you brought up such an interesting point, which is exactly what we're talking about. The two storylines of the bicycle. Now, when I was doing the role, that didn't occur to me. I was so involved. I was so self-absorbed in Anne's world, and the movies and the dress and the this and waking up. Oh, it's early. I got to go to work, and it was all so new to me, and it's so exciting. Well, you said that yesterday, or the day before when I watched it, and I thought, oh my God, that's right. It wasn't just me on the bicycle. The bicycle was a symbol for this fantastic exploration into what Michael was doing, and the freedom that she was looking for, and that, that balance that women everywhere, in these last decades have been searching for. And can you believe still in the world there are some women, they have none of it. They can do none of it. It's extraordinary when you think about that.
Yeah. I mean, the Waltons was, I think, ahead of its time in many ways, as far as some of the messages, which I'm sure is part of why it is still so beloved today and so relevant in today's world. But some of these subjects were viewed from an innocence of that period. And so I think it keeps it from being moralizing and preachy, because it was like the Waltons were experiencing something that was new to them. And so that was the best way for us as a viewer to take a look at a subject was, well, imagine if something unusual came into your small community and you weren't familiar with,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, she's got a hat with a feather on it. Geez, feather, and there's a little net over her eyes. She's got gloves on,
Yeah, and to watch the way people within the community would judge others.
Yes.
And then we, of course, would have the whole story to allow people to get to know who these suspicious sort of people were, and come to realize that they were just people and they had all of the same human qualities and emotions and fears and goals and dreams and, as the rest of us, that we at the core, all that similarity. And it is really just, those things that happen to us in our life that start shaping what goes on, and then how we respond to that.
Yeah. And the way that, in the writing and in acting, the way you all responded, the interest you had, and the revelations, by the time half of the show was done, 3/4 into the hour, that's one of the reasons it stands today, that people are still watching it and still talking about it.
What did you, because you did, you worked on a lot of the shows of the period. I made notes: Policewoman, Jake and the Fat Man, Fighting, Highway to Heaven, West Wing.
Right.
So, those were some of the big shows of the time. And so, as we know, an actor's life does not mean consistent work unless you're in a series. Right. And so what did you do to augment, to support your acting career when you had to?
When I had to. I was a singing bartender for a while.
Cool.
At a restaurant in a trip to New York, I just saw singing waiters and singing bartenders, and I thought, I could do that. That looks like fun. So I did that for a while. I luckily had a friend, my mother's best friend. Her husband owned a big CPA firm, and we would laugh because he'd hire 2 or 3 actresses who would come in at certain times during the year, like tax season, very, very busy. And then he would let us go. But, it was, someone called it like the actors rehab. Wasn't exactly that, but in a sense,
I have a question that we have had so many actors that did our show that then also were on Little House on the Prairie, which of course are the 2 shows that they're not exactly the same, but because they were of the same era, people seem to confuse all the time. So you worked on both shows. Were there things? In what way were they similar or different, or were the sets? Did it feel the same? How would you kind of talk about those 2 shows Because of course I never worked on Little House because I was busy doing the Waltons.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I know I loved doing Little House also because once again, there we were out in the country, out in the set that was so real that you didn't have to work at trying to make it real, and Victor directed it.
Oh,
the episode that I did. I must say I was very lucky because we had this little colony of this theater group, the Company of Angels, and Victor wanted to take this nucleus group, all who were working at the time. And I talk to them now and we look back and we say, oh my God, we were so lucky. Did we realize it at that age? And look at the roles we did, the shows that we did. And Victor was going to start a theater company, but he just kept working. And, it was hard to decide to do the two. When we did the second episode, The Fulfillment, I remember that we were in a kitchen scene. It was Victor and I at the kitchen table. And Anne was supposed to burst into tears because he admonishes her because she's talking to the dog the way I talk to my dog. And I think he says, like, Anne, you're talking to the dog like it's a baby. Just eat your dinner, or whatever the line was. And I remember, being a little tense about how am I going to get to that moment. And because it was a rather quick moment, it wasn't a lot leading into it. And God bless him, we were sitting at the table and he said, don't force anything. Let me do it to you. Let me as the actor. He wasn't directing it. He said, just let me. And I trusted him because I'd been in acting class with him for like 3 years already. And I don't know what he did, what button he pushed, but it just worked like a charm.
How wonderful.
It's so wonderful.
Him to
yes.
That you had that relationship where it wasn't like another actor giving you a note. Which I would certainly not.
I know.
Uninvited, I would not give that, say that to another actor. But when you have a relationship and you can step aside and go, hey, let's trust each other here. That's beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. His class was a lot about trust. So I'll never forget that because it was just. And of course, as we all have I've had other people through the years, say, do this one so that I can do that. And, then it gets testy. And it's like, no, thank you. I'll do what I'm told to do. But, with Vic, it was easy to let go like that as an actor, And the show had the environment to let you do that. It wasn't a tense set. There was nothing. I mean, look at the adults. Look who you were surrounded by. These lovely people. I mean, really. Yeah. Ralph, Will, and oh my God, these are just.
Yeah.
Endearing. Yeah.
And we didn't, the directors, we worked with some really wonderful directors who had terrific resumes and then, in later years I used to joke that we became a training ground for first-time directors because a lot of ADs got to direct their first shows on the Waltons. But I think it, in many ways, was a testament to the show and the overall environment and the crew that that it didn't impact negatively in any way and gave someone. We all have to have those opportunities to get our feet wet if we want to do something new, and to find those can be very hard. I know you were at, and which is how you sort of came back on my radar, the Hollywood Museum thing, which I was so disappointed when we were up on the stage and they were announcing the different people that were there. And I was like, oh, great, I get to talk. And then they had us so tied up taking pictures and people were then gone. It's like, oh, I didn't get to talk to anybody.
I know.
I was amazed at the people that were tracked down and invited. And again, that I didn't get time to talk with because there were so many people and so many of them I hadn't seen in a while at the 40th where it was just like, oh my goodness, and I want.
Oh, that must have been
It's kind of like being the bride at the wedding, where you don't get to really enjoy all your guests because you're getting pictures taken all the time.
Exactly.
And then the reception's over, and it's like, what happened? I didn't get to enjoy the reception.
Yeah. No, I remember being disappointed as well, but I was totally aware of what the scene was. So, so when I did hear from you, I was so excited.
Yeah. Well, I'm always happy when people reach out to me and say, hey, I've been watching, or I, love to, it's like, I don't mind people reaching out and saying, I'd love to come be a guest, because it's so much fun for me too,
Yeah. Here you are, a lovely success story of a child in Hollywood. God knows there are so many other stories that are just heartbreaking. But the Waltons, in a sense, with you kids, kind of helped you grow up, and this, the incredible sense of family, and allowing others to come in, and those became the values. Those were the values in the show, and looking at other people and trying to understand, questioning, but trying to understand who they are, and then letting them be exactly who they are. You're very so warm, and you're so allowing of, feelings of people, that anything that we did 50 years ago, it means you're looking at your life. It's not always an easy thing to do, but to still talk about those values that were instilled in those scripts and in those performances. I look at it now and I just think, wow, that's some of the great value of whatever body of work I have, Those were some of really the finest moments. I just think, wow, what a way to start. That's fantastic. And to be with people like you, that, that was a great set. I had the best time.
I want to thank Ivy for joining me. It's been such a treat to have her with me. I will be back with more behind the scenes of the Waltons and more Ask Judy. Thanks for watching.